So I wanted to share with this story from the Bible that really helped give me a great reminder about how God is ready with the rescue and just a little bit more hope and strengthening of my faith. And I would love to share that with everyone watching. It brought me to Jeremiah chapter 38. And this was a time when Jeremiah was a prophet trying to tell everybody to turn to God and follow God's ways, follow his warnings and his plans. Um, but during this time, there were some people that thought, no, you're trying to turn people to their ruin, you're discouraging everyone. And so they went to the king, and the king authorized these men to, take care of Jeremiah. And so this is where I want to pick up in this story. I'm going to jump around a couple of verses just so you can get the gist of it. Um, but yeah, so this is in Jeremiah 38, and I'm going to start off in verse 6. So they took Jeremiah and put him into the cistern of Malchijah. Sorry if I butcher any words. The king's son, which was in the courtyard of the guard. They lowered Jeremiah by ropes into the cistern. It had no water in it, only mud, and Jeremiah sank down into the mud. But Ebed-Melech, the Cushite, an official in the royal palace, heard that they had put Jeremiah into the cistern. While the king was sitting at the gate of Benjamin, Ebed-Melech went out of the palace and said to him, My lord the king, these men have acted wickedly in all they have done to Jeremiah the prophet. They have thrown him into a cistern where he will starve to death when there is no longer any bread in the city. Then the king commanded Ebed-Melech the Cushite, Take 30 men from here with you and lift Jeremiah the prophet out of the cistern before he dies. So Ebed-Melech took the men with him and went to a room under the treasury in the palace. He took some old rags and worn-out clothes from there and let them down with the ropes to Jeremiah in the cistern. Ebed-Melech the Cushite said to Jeremiah, Put these old rags and worn-out clothes under your arms to pad the ropes. Jeremiah did so, and they pulled him up with the ropes and lifted him out of the cistern, and Jeremiah remained in the courtyard of the guard. I know that may seem like a pretty plain story, but when you look at the details, I I was hit with so many new truths, or reminded of some truths. One of them was being that you are never too stuck to not be pulled out of where you're at. No matter how deep in the mud you are, no matter how beaten and bruised and alone you are, God can always pull you out. And then, as for Jeremiah, he was doing and saying everything that the Lord had asked of him, and he was staying faithful to the Lord. And yet, that ended up with him being at the bottom of the cistern. Yikes. But God, through the position of Ebed-Melech, he was able to approach the king and say something about this injustice. He was able to not only arrange the rescue of Jeremiah, but he had the thought and the consideration into the condition of this rescue. Because by this point, Jeremiah has gone through so many beatings because people didn't like what he was saying, and now he's just with this rope wrapped around him, left to die in the cistern. Yeah, I bet he wanted out right away, but imagine that thankfulness of having a little extra padding on that rescue. So, God not only positioned this man before Jeremiah was even thrown into the cistern, this man was able to think outside the box for his comfort. And I thought that was beautiful. Um, so no matter what kind of pickle you're in, God is ready with the rescue. And if you just kind of go along another chapter into Jeremiah, you meet Jeremiah and Ebed-Melech face to face again. And I want to read to you the little snippet then that really hit me too of the follow-up of this. And that's Jeremiah 39:15 through 18. While Jeremiah had been confined in the courtyard of the guard, the word of the Lord came to him. Go and tell Ebed-Melech the Cushite, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. I am about to fulfill my words against this city through disaster, not prosperity. At that time they will be fulfilled before your eyes. But I will rescue you. I will rescue you on that day, declares the Lord. You will not be handed over to those you fear. I will save you. You will not fall by the sword, but will escape with your life, because you trust in me, declares the Lord. Again, talk about God being ready with the rescue. These two faithful men helped each other, but if it wasn't for God with his wise timing and planning, imagine where they would have been at then. Granted, God would have definitely brought up the rescue from another source then, but how great it is knowing that you can follow God and be confident of his rescuing skills. Not only that, when Ebed was told, because you trust in me, I got you, I'll rescue you. If you notice, he wasn't told how it was going to happen and when it was going to happen. Just that on that day, I will rescue you. And Ebed took him at his word. He had faith in that. He trusted the Lord. And I thought that was great because you don't need to know how it's going to happen. You just need to have faith in knowing that it can happen and it will happen in the way that the Lord times it. As much as Jeremiah probably didn't want to get thrown into the cistern, it wasn't until he was thrown in that he needed rescuing. And when I keep thinking about trusting in God being capable to rescue, led me to another story in Daniel when it came to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were three who refused to bow down to what the king was ordering to worship, an idol. They're like, no, we're not compromising our faith by bowing down to your idol. And I really want to share with you what they even told the king, because again, it really showed the example of what an uncompromised faith is. And I believe that activated the miraculous saving that came right after it. And this is in Daniel chapter 3. I'm going to read part of verse 16 through 18. Again, this is their response to the king when they said that we won't bow down to your idols. They said, "We do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." Talk about a bold statement. But these men had the faith in God, not in their situation, not in anything else but God. And from there, when they were thrown into the furnace for not obeying the king, they were saved and rescued in such a divine intervention that even the king turned around and said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command, and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces and their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way." And then the king promoted them. So talk about a stand in your faith so strong that not only are you caught up in a brilliant rescue, but you have changed the way of how even others view God. And it's just, wow. I don't know about any of you guys, but I definitely want to believe in a God that rescues. And He can rescue through setting up people in the right place at the right time. And He can rescue in divine intervention by sweeping in and grabbing you from the flames. So, I guess what I wanted to share with you with these stories was that put your trust in God in these times. Strengthen your faith and be reminded of who God is. And part of who God is that He's a rescuer and Jesus, His Son, is a Savior. So I hope you're all doing well, and I really hope this helped you as it helped me. Bye.